Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Canadian Bowler After Dark. It's the brand new panel show, courtesy of the Canadian Bowler. This will be our pilot episode for this new format, and we hope that you really enjoy it. Today, we are actually joined by four really distinguished bowlers from all over the country. If you see off to the left of your screen, we have Greg Wilson. Greg Wilson is a bowler from Calgary, Alberta. He bowls out of the Calgary Law and Bowls Club. He is a member of the national team. He's won national medals, played internationally, won medals. He's done a lot of stuff, and he's currently out in BC, so we are really happy to have him in. Thank you for joining, Greg.
Thanks, Darryl. Happy to be here.
Directly below Greg, we have Dave Anderson. Dave has more experience than all of us on here. I'll put it that way. He is a multiple-time medalist. He is a member of the Ontario Lawn Bowls Hall of Fame. Really distinguished bowling career. Everybody in Ontario, or most bowlers in Ontario, I would say know him or know of him. He's done amazing things in the world of bowls, and probably one of the best for his teams that has ever played out of Canada, as far as longevity and results. So, Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And this guy over here, Mike Pituley. Mike is out of Saskatchewan. He bowls out of the Regina Lawn Bowling Club. Part of a pretty distinguished family, the Pituleys, with his brother John, Harriet, and Murray. They've all had great success in bowls and multiple-time medalist. I can't even count how many pairs and fours that you've won. Pretty amazing. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And directly below him is somebody that is really unfamiliar to the Canadian bowler, Rob Law. I know what all of you are thinking. Rob again? He's cheap and he's accessible and he's always willing to come on. So we're really happy to have him on. But he's a bowler out of Manitoba. He bowled recently out of Nova Scotia and he is now actually in Alberta. So he's traveled around. He's seen bowls in different places. Not so much in Alberta so far with the pandemic, but we hope to get his perspective on bowls all over the place. He's a member of the senior team. He's a player rep for the national team as well. Rob Law, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. I didn't have much on tonight, so happy to be here.
So guys, I'm going to throw this out here. Everybody's opinions are their own. We want the conversation to be open, honest. We want to have good opinions, good thoughts on everything that is related to bowls, especially in Canada and even internationally. I know it's a little tough right now with all the stuff that's going on in the world, but I think a really good place to start, and I'm going to throw this one out to Mike. What are you missing with bowls right now, or are you missing it at all?
Just in general, missing being out, playing, practicing, being at the club. That's always nice. Saskatchewan specifically, we're just getting open this week. A couple of the clubs in Saskatoon have rolled, and I think next week Regina gets it, but we have to have like essentially a supervisor on the sanitation, and there's lots of kind of weird things they're going to have to figure out. So hopefully roll in the next couple weeks here, but just in general missing the competition because we would have been right in the middle of provincials or finished provincials almost at this point right now. So.
Nice. How about you, Rob? What are you missing?
Well, I think for me, same thing. Club atmosphere is definitely lacking when you go. I've only been a couple times and been maybe 3 or 4 people there when I went. But same thing, would have been my first year out in Alberta, so was looking forward to a new province and trying provincials somewhere other than Manitoba, and didn't really get to experience that, obviously. So, yeah, just missing the competitive atmosphere and the club atmosphere, I think.
And Dave, I know that Milton's not quite open yet, but they're planning to go in the next couple of weeks. What are you missing right now?
Yeah, we start July 6th. But you know what I miss about bowls is, you know, we all love the game and we all want to play the game, but it's actually the the people. You know, I haven't seen Steve, for example, since February. I haven't seen Fred since February, and I haven't seen any lawn bowler for that matter, except for Mark. I saw Mark a few weeks ago, but it's the people that I've missed in bowls, to be honest. It's just and that's what brings you to the game in my books is the people that are involved, and that's what I miss. You know, we love the game, but people.
How about you, Greg?
Oh, the competition, man, for sure. Getting into those pressure moments is what I live for in the game. And like Rob and I were supposed to have been down in Australia. I was going to be down there for 5 weeks at World Bowls. So really looking forward to that trip all year, and stuff happens and we're all getting through it, which is good. But yeah, I can't wait to get back out there and start playing some high pressure games.
I'm going to throw it out to the other guy that I didn't introduce because I think most people here know both of us. But Luke, what are you missing, buddy?
I don't know. I might have to be the dark horse here and say I don't know if I miss it as much as the rest of you guys. Like I love the sport of bowls, but I mean, for me personally, my passion at the moment's not in bowls, and it's in getting out on the water and catching some fish. So that's been a really nice not having to spend all my spare time out on the bowling green practicing and stuff. But I mean, I do miss everybody, like you guys said, and competition's always fun. But for me, it's kind of nice to do something else for a summer. But I guess that's just my opinion.
I'll throw this out to everybody. Considering we're all missing bowls in some form, some more than others, obviously. When all of this starts coming out and we actually start getting back on the greens, I know it's really slow right now, but when it actually gets back to whatever normal is going to be, what do you think that bowls needs to do to bounce back and to actually start growing? I know we've been kind of stagnant recently. This is open to anybody if you want to answer.
I think we got to take see what works across the world. And everyone here has been in the clubs in Australia, and they're all having a good time, drinking beers, music playing, out there on your bare feet, having people come in off the road. I think if we could get some of the people in here in the country and across North America into more of like a more open idea of bowls where it's not dressed in white and have to drink waters, and maybe we can get out there, have a couple drinks, and have some fun, and maybe that would be a way to introduce some new people to the sport and get them into the competitive aspect.
Fair, yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Yeah.
With Regina, we had our B Cube League. Like you guys had the Watsons on a few weeks ago on your podcast, and
Sure.
They had 18 teams for that the first year, and then they had 8 teams pre-registered. And then with everything happening, we essentially had to close down that league, or temporarily, I guess, to postpone it at this point. But it's that was going really good forward, and we had sponsorships from a brewery in Regina and a couple other places. So it actually was working pretty good for them to kind of build on the success of the 18 teams from year one and go forward. But we'll see if it can kind of be salvaged here, if they can open it up here in the next little while.
Yeah, I think those barefoot bowls leagues that they have in Australia are a wicked idea. If you could get like a club that is in close proximity to a popular drinking hole for kids on Friday nights or whatever, and hold a barefoot league on a Friday evening or whatever, and people could go down and do their pre-drinking at the club instead of going to somebody's house or whatever, I think it would be huge for getting the popularity of sport up there for sure.
Do you guys think that having a bar at a club is meaningful?
What was that? Sorry, Dave?
Yeah, I was just going to follow up on Greg's comment. I remember when I went to Broad Beach and talked to Ryan about he said barefoot bowls is free money to start with. So you need money to build resources to make the club better. But they come into the club, they throw a few bowls, play a few ends of bowls, I should say, and then go hit the bar, and they have fun. So what I think is sometimes missing with how we promote the game is we don't necessarily show the people that are coming into the club the fun they can have with it. I think they focus on got to wear proper shoes, you have to play a certain way, and I think we get lost where people give up on it very quickly because I want to do it my own way. So I think the fun part is a big part of promoting the game that we don't necessarily do completely right.
Totally fair. So with those comments, a lot of them kind of circled around the idea of going out, having some fun, maybe having a few drinks. How essential is a bar to a club to raising that profile and getting people in?
I think right now in the current state of, before the pandemic, it's just like drinking culture is a pretty normal thing, right? So it's a super social event. So even if like you could just go in after, instead of having your cookies and tea, maybe having a beer, a couple beers. The club's going to make more money selling me a beer than they're going to be selling me $1.50 coffee or whatever they got going on. So I think it's just a good thing to do. And when you got tournaments going on like we have in Ontario, you have a couple at the club every week or every other week or whatever. If you just have that open, it's just more revenue coming in to have more resources to start another program or something else along those lines. So I think it is a really good thing for clubs to have.
Cool. I remember when Burlington first opened their bar. Prior to that, people would come to the club, and as soon as the games were over, people were packing up their bowls and they were out of there as fast as they could to go to the Plow and Harrow or to go downtown or whatever. But as soon as and all it was a mini fridge with cans of beer, and then eventually they stepped it up and they got a keg on tap, or so you could get beer on tap and whatever. And almost the day that it happened, people started hanging around the club more often. They were sharing their stories in the club, and instead of being out of there at 7:30, 8 o'clock, people were staying till 10:30 and just enjoying the club atmosphere. And yeah, I think it was huge for Burlington's success.
Nice. Perfect.
Yeah, that made a huge difference in Burlington when they brought the bar in. Just hanging around, having a good time with each other. Yep.
Yeah, the bar is a big thing I've been pushing in Manitoba, just especially Norwood is not a lot of people stick around. We don't have a massive clubhouse, but I think just a simple setup, even like you guys have in Heritage there with just a simple tap, a couple beers there, and people can really stick around, especially like drawing in someone for cheap beers. You can buy whatever, like a pitcher for almost no money and go play for 2 or 3 ends. It's a great way to get people in, and especially young people like cheap alcohol.
I've always had a thought to myself. Like, I know I'm pretty lucky with the club that we have in Peterborough with all the big TVs and the big projector screens. I always thought it'd be kind of cool if they had like the Stanley Cup playoffs or the UFC fights on the weekend, and just have people come on into the club, maybe have some bowls before, and then go back in and watch the fights on the TV. Have the bar, the club could make some money, and maybe get people to bowl before. And if they bowled before, maybe it was like free entry for the fights or something. I always thought that was a pretty good idea, but it's just never taken off.
Okay. I know Rob mentioned Heritage, which is my club in Kitchener. When we got the bar, the initial investment was obviously more than what we expected, but the revenue afterwards and the payoff for it down the road has been just exponential compared to the initial investment. So it's been fantastic for our club, even though you have to be a little more careful, follow the rules, do all that kind of stuff, and make sure people are behaving themselves, which is always the worry of people who don't have a bar at their club. If we put it in, what's going to happen? But it's been phenomenal for us so far, so it's been great. Yeah.
I think it would be very interesting to see if a city was building like a community center that had a bar in it, and I know there's a lot more hoops to jump through in order to allow gambling at a building, but I know with Broadbeach as an example, they have, I don't know what the number is, but the number of social members at the club who don't even throw a bowl, don't even understand the game of bowls, but are there every weekend, every Friday night, whenever there's a social event. You can't help but expose a ton more people to the game. Like if they're just out there having a drink or or there to play bingo or whatever, and the game's going on in the background, people are getting exposed to the game, and you never know when you're going to get your next superstar or some kid walking off the street there to watch his grandma's bingo game. Go out and throw bowls, and you've got the next Rob Loss, right?
I love watching my grandma play bingo.
Anything to watch that anymore.
No, I actually think Greg's onto something there. Where it's true. When I went for the first time to a club in Australia and saw, hey, our social membership is like $5 or $10, and you come in and you're part of the club. You take part in the social events, whatever it is, music, live music, the bar, special nights. But bowls is kind of that secondary thing that's in the background that you hope that maybe they'll get a little intrigued and come out and see what it is and take part in it. But the focus isn't necessarily all, let's get people out in bowls and then, like Dave was mentioning, tell them about the shoes and tell them about the bowls and all these rules and all this kind of stuff and what you have to do. Just get them attracted as a social member first, and then have some fun, and then maybe transition that fun out in the green.
Yeah, for me, I feel like it's those charity events. That's kind of the big thing. People come out for another reason, like the Lawn Summer Nights. People come out for cystic fibrosis. They have a great night that night, and bowl is just kind of the background of it all. But then they get a chance to get exposed to the game. I had a bunch of friends. We ran one in Winnipeg last year, and they all asked me if it was coming back this year. And obviously, COVID had other ideas, but to kind of run that would be a great way to track people just around the game and get exposed to it first off.
When you guys do something like that, Rob, does any of that translate to membership, or is that basically just the people who show up and that's pretty much it?
I don't think anything translated for the Winnipeg event. I'm sure that it has elsewhere. There's different formats that you can run for those, which is some are weekly things, but it did generate revenue for the clubs that hosted it, which was awesome. So hopefully eventually it turns into membership, but it didn't this year.
What it does do, Leaside in Toronto, they have the Lawn Summer Nights, and they do every Thursday in July. So they have 4 consecutive weeks where they have an event, and it sells out in minutes. It's all online. It sells in minutes. But what it translates to, maybe not so much in membership, but it translates into big bucks. Leaside's got 6 figures in the bank because of it.
Wow.
And so, unfortunately, Leaside's greens aren't as good as they could be. They have the money to make them better, but that's the goal anyway. You have money to build on the resources of the club. And Lawn Summer Nights for Leaside in particular has been great from a financial point of view. And the goal is the greens get better, the clubhouse gets better, they can promote the game a bit more, forget about the shoes and the bowls, bring them in, have a good time, and that hopefully translates into more membership. It hasn't necessarily, and I think that's a whole different discussion. Maybe the people looking after the membership aren't always the best people looking after the membership. They throw the rules at you before you actually get thrown a bowl. And I'm out of here. I don't want to deal with that.
Just a quick sidebar on that point, guys. Do you think with like how shoes are made today, are shoes really that big of a deal anymore? Like, are regular running shoes really destroying greens as much as people like to say they are?
No.
I don't think so either. I'm just curious on your guys' thoughts.
What a great comment here. Oh my gosh. You're right, 100%. Maybe if the green is wet, as a lot of greens are because they're watered every day, but generally speaking, I remember, just to go back to the Broad Beach experience, the barefoot bowls, women were coming in with heels on, and it didn't do a thing to them because the greens looked after properly, of course. But if we could get to that point, it doesn't matter what kind of shoes you wear.
Yeah, I think unless you're wearing like a almost like a heel or like sort of like a dress shoe with a big heel on them, you're probably fine for the most part, I would imagine.
It's just about wetness, that's all. If the green is water soaked and soft, and it will cause some damage, of course.
Well,
But generally speaking, looked after properly, or not watered as much. Any kind of shoe is fine.
I think that's the perfect point. There is the wetness. I know in Canada, when you travel around and see some of the greens, and you know that even if you drop your bowl lightly on the ground, you're going to skid and tear up a piece of the green because it's just so shallow, so soft. That's when you could wear bowling shoes and you're going to rip up the green. It doesn't really matter, right? But proper greens, something that's a little stiffer and a little harder. Yeah, well, what's the damage? Why are we so picky about certain types of bowling shoes? Even bowling shoes that are allowed worldwide, not necessarily in Canada, right?
No, don't get me started.
I'm trying to wind you up there, Dave. Come on.
No, well done, you've done it. Any shoe that's acceptable at the World Championships should be acceptable and on any Canadian green in any Canadian event. And unfortunately,
I think almost any shoe that's made by a bowls company or anything that's made for lawn bowling should be accepted, whether it's accepted at World Event or not. Like, because if Taylor Bowles or Asics, who's making lawn bowling shoes, if they put out a lawn bowling shoe, I mean, it's probably safe enough for the green. So,
yeah,
we should probably talk to the officiating committee about that. Anybody on the officiating committee?
Not here.
Good,
No.
Good.
I hate to be that guy that dwells on former conversation, but lawn summer nights with Rob's topic there, or what he was talking about. We actually got a promotional package from them because they run it through us for 8 weeks in Regina, and he actually was part of their promotional package that they sent to us this year. So I didn't text you about this, but you're actually in their photo repertoire they sent to us.
Oh no.
So it's like probably about 7 or 8 like collage photos, and the one is of you on a microphone like talking or something like that. But it's like you like with like all these other people around you, and I just like laughed because of course I know who you are, and they sent it to us like they're trying to promote the event to us, and it's like, well, we know who Rob is, so obviously it's kind of funny when the two worlds clash, I guess, where you got the lawn summer nights where they're doing their fundraising and they don't realize that I guess the lawn bowling world's pretty small and we know who everyone is.
Yeah. Yeah, they made the unfortunate error of giving me free reign of the mic that night. So I walked around with that thing and I made full advantage of it.
I feel like every time that you get the mic in your hand, you always cause some trouble.
I think that's really accurate, actually. Yeah.
He needs to be in a certain state to accept the mic in the first place, which doesn't help.
Yeah, rumor has it at WOBA last year he sold it. He bought the whole bar out. He drank them out of beer, and then he was trying to hit on the softball girls next door. So
It was not a hit on it, but it was a world-class interview. I think TSN should consider me for an analyst.
Picture you sitting there up beside Kate Burness. It'll be awesome.
You need to work on that haircut, though, Rob. Right, first.
Well, that's COVID's fault. And Greg did it the last time, actually. Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
well, I guess we know who the better barber in the house is. So
So I guess cycling back to greens, how important do you guys think better greens are to not only obviously good bowling, but to getting new members and keeping new members than slightly slower greens? I know I've heard, well, around my club, not necessarily in my club, but some people saying, you know, we get up to, let's say 12 or 13 when we're running okay and things are going well in the summer, which isn't incredibly fast. And they're saying, oh man, that's too fast. You gotta get it down to like 10 seconds, 9 seconds, and that's good for me. What do you guys think about that?
I think the biggest misconception about fast greens in Canada is everyone wants fast greens, but how many times have you guys all here gone to a fast green somewhere that's running 14 seconds and your bowl tracks off 6 feet the wrong way just because the greens are so wonky? Even though they're fast, I guess it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good green. So I think a lot of clubs need to work on maybe getting them a little bit more true before they worry about speed too much. But I think once you get to that point, I guess speed's going to make the game easier for everybody. It's going to give the game some longevity for maybe some of our older athletes in the sport. They don't have to absolutely hurl the ball down a 6-second green, which is fun for everybody. But I think, I think there's a little bit of a misconception behind the whole speed thing, making it a good green.
I'll give you the opposite of that, actually. Back in the day when Heritage first opened up, Bill Becker was one of the guys that was largely responsible for getting the club, along with a few other people. But he preached to the club for weeks, months, years. We need to get these greens faster, and they were always very reluctant to go that way, and they water the greens on a regular basis because they wanted to be nice and green. So one year they had a friendly with the St. Mary's Lawn Bowling Club, and St. Mary's traditionally has always been a very good club and always had fast greens. So the membership all went over to St. Mary's from Heritage and played a friendly against the club, and they came back and complained, we couldn't keep our bowls on the green. So I think it goes beyond having good greens. I think that, throw it back to you, Darryl, a little bit, because that's your baby, the coaching part. The coaching is not teaching people to play on a fast green. They're teaching people to, and it sounds weird to say it, and I'm sure someone has an opinion on that, but I think when you look at the average Joe member playing in a club, and they go to St. Mary's and they have no idea how to play on stuff like that, something's missing. And I think, okay, beautiful. I want fast greens. Of course, we all want fast greens. But when it comes to the general membership, maybe we need to change something in how we approach the game to them, or teach the game to them.
It's fair.
Silence.
That's fair. From a coaching perspective, since you brought that up, trying to coach somebody on, say, a sub 10-second green, to play all shots and all situations and show them kind of the subtleties of the game and try to get them interested is so difficult. Even when you try to modify, right?
Yeah.
It's tough. You can't get around stuff. You don't want to tell them that, hey, your only course of action is to plow through everything, which unfortunately a lot of people do, because that's not what you're going to get when you get on those higher end greens. So it's it's extremely tough to do that.
And just a small sidebar, I was watching something on Facebook, a game somewhere in Australia, and the green was running and beautiful. It was like 16, 17 seconds. It was flat. It was perfect. And somebody, and the person, I have no idea who it was, they were from Alberta, and they said, is this game being played on carpet? So they don't even know the difference between a good green and what they normally play on. And Alberta has some good greens, so they should know the difference. So it's, to me, you talk about we want fast greens, but we want fast greens. But do the general members, do they want fast greens? And I think Luke said it extends the game. Oh my God, they can play for years longer if they can actually throw a drive on a green instead of throwing a normal drive that goes 20 feet up the green. So that they don't even understand that part. So I wonder if getting good greens, which is what we want, should be the focus first, or should it be, this is how we should be playing the game and teaching people that? Because I know a lot of general club members who have no clue how to play on a fast green.
That's where Alberta's pretty lucky. Like a lot of the clubs in our area, Ken from Specialty Turf Care, who everybody knows, who's played at Nationals, he's taken care of a lot of the greens over the years. So he knows the benefits of playing on fast greens, and he tries his best to get the greens as level as possible and as fast as makes sense. So the Alberta club members have all become comfortable playing on those greens. So I think where where the clubs in Ontario, you have so many clubs and there are so many clubs who aren't willing to speed the greens up, but you have also large memberships who, as soon as anything is changing, their first thing to do is complain about the change and how the club is catering to the 3 competitive bowlers that they've got, and they feel like they're being wronged because the greens are changing from what they're used to. But in our case, all the greens are getting faster, so people have just become used to it now. So that complaint of the greens being too fast is over, and they're just comfortable playing on them.
Brilliant. Well done. Well said, Greg. That's exactly true.
So, Mike, out in Saskatchewan, you've got, I'll say, like a really successful group of players, and they keep coming in, like yourself and John. Obviously, you guys are older now. You've got the Watsons coming up. You've got Jordan, who's done phenomenal. What kind of stuff attracted them and brought them into the game and kept them at it? I know it's family, but is there anything else that goes on?
Like our club's always been very forefront of like advertising, so they always advertise in like our schools have, I guess, a recreation guide that you can go with. So we advertise at the schools, and I don't know if you know any about the Watsons causes. They're very good alley bowlers. So we advertised with the alley bowling community, and that's how we kind of got their attention, is they saw it there and they also saw it in the school pamphlet. And then Lois, like Jordan's mom, thought it was a typo and that they're saying that kids could play. And she ended up calling my dad, who was the junior coordinator at the time, and was like, oh, you know that they're saying kids can play this sport. And my dad's like, nope, they can play, they can show up, they can give it a try. And so then he made sure I was there, because she ended up saying that Brandon and Carter were coming, and they would have been, 3 and 5 years younger than me. So they got me to come out that week, and we pretty much hooked them the first week because it's very much up their alley. So no pun intended.
I wanted to circle back to a comment that was made. Greg, obviously you made it. Amazing, eh? Complainers. Now, I don't know how you guys want to approach this subject, but I've been thinking over the pandemic where I go on Facebook or I go on social media where everybody is right now talking about getting back on the green, and it's like 90% complaints and probably 10% positive feedback and things that are going well. I also see that during the year. Complain about rinks, complain about end greens, complain about bowls, straight bowls, complain about weather or too hot, too cold, whatever it is. Are we just a community of complainers, or is it a culture that's built up in bowls, and as people come in, they just get sort of conditioned to do that? What do you guys think?
Oh, we're definitely conditioned to be complainers. Absolutely. Every time you lose a game, it's the green was shit, no matter how good it was. So I think that's just kind of the way it is.
Okay.
Spicy topic. I can't do Facebook anymore, man. Just coming up, like, especially like being on the national team is always like when you get selected, it's so exciting, and when you don't get selected, it's heartbreaking. And no matter who the team selected is, there are always the guys off in the shadows who have nothing but bad things to say. So after years of seeing it, I can't even go on there, and except for your guys' podcast and like my select group of friends in the game, and all of them are on here right now. I can't even watch Facebook for bowls anymore.
Wow. Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a culture thing for sure in the bowls world. I think that naturally people are just set in their ways a little bit. I mean, obviously we're an old cultured sport just by reputation. And I think a bit of that is the fact that people are resistant to change, coming with the times. It's tough. I remember setting up even social media accounts for Bowls Manitoba and stuff was, really difficult to do because our membership isn't at the same sort of times, I guess, with what I'm used to growing up and what Luke and Mike would be used to, Greg as well, all of you, I guess. But it's an older cultured sport, and I think people are more open to change. But yeah, online you really get to hear the people who are very passionate about no change all the time.
Rob, that's a very politically correct way of saying things. Well done. I could not say it like that. You're right. I think complaining is commonplace. No matter what, there's going to be complaining on Bulls, and I think part of it is maybe because we're an older sport for sure, and it kind of trickles down to everyone who plays. I know I complain about lots of things. So I've fallen into the same trap that everybody else falls into. I think that is one of the dark things that prevents the game from perhaps growing bigger, is our complaining. I think people like you guys are all younger than me, and people younger than you are the ones that should be changing the face of Bowls and the attitude of Bowls, and the complaining part is much easier for you guys because you don't complain. I don't hear you guys complain the same way the old guys do, including myself. So I think it's partly because it's an older person sport, or older sport, and I don't want to say it the wrong way, I already have, but it doesn't matter. And it just trickles down. We complain about everything.
I think for me, I would say it's not so much, it's more people have, I guess, excuses for why things don't go well, is kind of where we go with lawn bowls, is you have an excuse, well, the green wasn't good, or it was windy, or whatever it might have been. It's a lot of just excuses. If it doesn't go well, you're going to make an excuse. I feel that's kind of how a lot of lawn bowling is. We're built into have an excuse for why we didn't play well or why it didn't go well that day. And really, if I have a good game, I don't really think I have an excuse for why I played well that day. So it's kind of, for me, I just see it as an excuse type of a thing where people have that in their mind.
It's a really good point, Mike. Like, how many times have you guys heard somebody say, "Oh, I lost that tournament because we played on an end green at the end of the day," or something like that? So,
well, most sports blame the ref. We blame the greens, I guess. So,
yeah,
that's true.
I'm a lawyer.
Is that you, Rob?
That wasn't me, but that was awesome whoever did it.
For those that don't know, Rob Law
Mike,
is going to become a lawyer. So.
Hey, Mike, I totally agree with you. It's excuses, even more than complaining. I think you're right. Excuses is a bigger problem than complaining.
Yeah.
So, in the light of complaining and not wanting to, I guess, own up to the things that are going wrong, is that also preventing us from moving ahead with innovation and change and trying to find something that that'll be possibly not crushing the traditional game as it stands, but adding to it so that it's more ingestible for TV, better for people at night if they have jobs, they can come and play a quick game in a certain format and have some fun and leave. Is that kind of just part and parcel with complaining and not wanting to really stray from the path that's ahead of you?
A tough one.
Part of me feels like a lot of bowlers now, when we judge an idea, especially for new things, we think about how it would work for us. So obviously, as a senior citizen, a night league doesn't really work well for you because you have your own reasons. But obviously, for someone working or who is younger, we would judge that as being like a night league is the way to go. So I feel like part of our sort of issue as a culture is we haven't had that outside perspective of this is what new outcoming people might be looking for, or younger people. and we see it from a one lens of this is what it's always been, this is how we grew up in the sport or came to the sport, and this is what works well for us. So we don't get to that kind of broad perspective and new ideas.
Yeah, I know at our club, I don't find that people are opposed to change. They kind of like stuff, but it also comes down to who's going to do it, right? Someone may have a great idea, but we talk. The term is thrown around our club a fair bit after big events or things that we do. It's just volunteer burnout. We take half of our club to do, say, a nationals, or at our club we do WOBA as well, and things can line up pretty quickly. When we want to change something and we say, well, we need some help and we need some other stuff, people just don't seem to want to keep adding on to their list of duties as a volunteer. So is our reliance on volunteers versus actually having clubs set up as a business per se with some moving parts holding us back as well?
I would say yeah. Like my club in Regina, for years we hosted the Tri-Province Challenge where Manitoba, Alberta, and Saskatchewan would play, and then every couple of years we'd throw in a nationals, like a team. We'd have whatever nationals it would be, and then there'd probably be a couple other events during the year where we host large group bookings. And when you combo all of them together, you get the same about 10 people that were volunteering, and then they're there every week or every second week for however many hours. And then, as you're saying, burnout, it kind of adds up and they get a little fed up with it because there's 140 members and only 10 people really come out and help or try and be there to help with these bookings. So eventually they get burnt out and it becomes difficult to kind of cope with all of the trying to make money balanced with the fact it's a volunteer base. Going forward, like our clubs, we've started to take advantage of like a grant with students, bringing in students through the Government of Canada. So we're bringing in 2 summer students. They're going to pretty much come in here, run our group bookings platform, kind of go that route, because I think you need to almost move to a paid position for someone to run group bookings, do everything that's involved with that. It's almost a forward step in my eyes, because they're potentially going to actually have it as a job rather than a volunteer who might be a little fed up if they have to be there every second night for a group booking type of thing.
All right, moving on. With travel being restricted and things not open right now, there's weird preparation going on with World Bowls, Commonwealth Games, things that are going to be stacking up pretty close. For you guys that are getting ready to actually possibly go out there and participate in that stuff, how difficult has it been for you guys to manage that and to focus without being actually able to get out there and do stuff?
I think Rob and I are really lucky. The fact that he got a job in Calgary and I just moved into a new house and had room to share a bedroom for Rob to come and stay with me. Like the bonding that we've done over the last few months, even though I'm off on the road quite a bit for work, but when I come home, like the chance to spend time with one of my teammates just hasn't happened before. Because we're usually, you go and see each other for a quick training camp before an event starts, and a lot of the times you barely know the guy that you're going to be playing with, so you have to kind of develop that chemistry on the fly. But like Rob and I, for an example, are going to have pretty much 2 years of seeing each other on a fairly regular basis. So when we get out there, there's going to be no uncomfortable, awkward silences ever. Like we're going to be practically brothers when we get there. So I think just that fact alone is going to be huge for us on the greens when we get down there.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the bonding, especially with teams at different events, and I guess you guys can speak to it as well, but just that after the bowls, like, I mean, you're there to bowl and you do whatever you have to do on the green, but the afterwards part is where the stories come out of, and what those kind of stories and jokes that lighten the mood in a tense moment, they all come out either at your apartment after or out for dinner or wherever it is. So to have that and to be able to hang out with Greg and just like we watch a movie or whatever before, like at night and stuff, it's nice to have those kind of experiences still without having the bowling part thrown in, for sure. But I will admit, it's kind of taking a longer perspective to training has been difficult at times.
I just want to clarify something for anybody watching right now. I just realized the way I said that, it sounded like maybe Rob and I were sharing a room. That's not the case. There's multiple rooms at the house, so Rob has his own room. Just thought I'd let you guys know that.
I just got to ask you real quick, Greg. I've had my own personal experiences with Rob. How do you deal with somebody like that?
I cannot wait to get to work. I'm home for like 3 or 4 days, and by the end of day one at home, it's like send me back to work. So you know what? Honestly, he's been awesome. He's been cooking up some pretty mean meals. He's going to be challenging Bear for the best cook on the team when we get down to Australia, if it pans out. Which right now it's kind of up in the air, but yeah, the boys come along.
Nice.
The cooking was supposed to be a secret, so we could just go out instead.
Yeah, we all don't have lawyer money like you, Rob. So,
so for the rest of you guys, in the same kind of vein, what does a year off, basically where no nationals, no provincials, no districts or anything, what does a year off mean for you guys? Is it like a lost year? Is it okay because it's kind of a break and you know that nothing's going on? But what does that year off mean to you?
Old age catches up.
Fair, very fair.
I think for me,
Go ahead.
no, you go ahead, Dave.
No, I was just going to follow up on being old and not getting out and bowling. I'll bet you that first bowl I throw is going to be painful, partly because you when you're not active like you are when you're bowling, life catches up to you. Just to be honest, I'm getting old.
I was just gonna say, just for me personally, I think year off at this point in my life is probably not the worst thing. Just being able to work on myself a little bit and have my extra spare time, just kind of do me instead of being out on the bowling green and whatever else. Just for me, it's been kind of nice. So I don't see it as a lost year. I mean, it's unfortunate I haven't been able to be out there and compete with the people I like to bowl with and have a good time. But I mean, lots of other things going on, so I think it'll be all right.
What about you, Mike? Do you miss being out there with the family? I'm sure you see them there, but what's it like for you?
Honestly, a year off for me has turned into me buying a trailer, buying a truck, essentially moving out to the lake and being at the lake every weekend. So it's been a bit of a change up because no bowls, nothing I could possibly do right now. So I bought yeah, Luke just making it rain. I bought the trailer, bought the truck, and
Look at this. He was prepared.
Yeah, so being out there and I'm fishing, just like Luke would be happy with that, and kind of enjoying the other aspects of life because just with my family and everything we've had happen the last year and a bit here with my nephew passing away, we kind of realize there's life outside of bowls. So for us, we're just kind of looking at things outside of the world, and that's what I've been doing, is really focusing on things outside of bowls anyways. So it's been a good year, but yeah, hopefully I can get back out there sometime soon in the next month or so.
It is a strange feeling not having to block out that whole kind of 2-week section in August for bowls. Like, just the amount of extra time you have and to work with is a really strange and unfamiliar feeling for myself, at least.
Yeah, I have holiday time for the first time in 3 years of my life.
Yeah. I know at work I had to shift vacation time around, and I just didn't know where to put it because it's like, well, normally I'd do this, or I'd do this, or I'd be going somewhere, and everything was canceled. It was kind of like, well, I guess I got to plan some other stuff to do and use my vacation. I had no idea. Yeah, it was such a strange place to be for once. So I'll throw this out to you guys. If you want to answer, you don't have to answer. In Canada, who is the toughest person you've ever had to compete against on the green, and why?
I'm gonna go with someone who's actually part of the show today and say it's Mike, because I've only ever had to play against him 3 or 4 times. But let me tell you, if you ever beat him in a game, he goes from being your best friend to being somebody that absolutely hates you. So it's kind of tough. Like, you almost don't want to beat him because he makes you feel so bad after. I just a quick little something to add. I remember it was years ago now. We were playing in Saskatoon, and I was staying with him in a hotel, and we played against each other in the bronze medal game. And if I do remember closely, it wasn't a very close game. And Mike was like, "Oh, I think I'm just gonna go home tonight," and he was all grumpy about it, but it ended up being okay.
You just gotta give me my 7-minute bluffer after the game, and once I've processed that I've lost and I'm a loser, it's good to go. If I'm just gonna steal the comment there, like person I'd say the toughest for me to play would be Keith Roney. For years, literally had to play the guy, constantly beat me for literally, I think, 8 years before I got to nationals. So he's so experienced, and he's so analytical with the game, where he thinks about every little thing that could happen. It's so difficult to beat him. You have to really either outplay him or honestly get some luck on your side, because he's usually pretty covers all his bases type of a player. So he taught me a lot, because he really is quite a technical player. So he'd probably be the one that even to this day, we still always have good games when we play him in years down the line.
I think I got to piggyback off Mike there. For me, my Keith Roney would be John Bjornson in Manitoba. I mean, I played him a ton of times, lots of singles matches, always close. And he knows how to get me to be not focused on the game and bring up conversations. He's very good with the social aspect of it and working it. But yeah, he's a competitor that I've only beaten a couple times, and it's just, he's always going to bring you a good game, you know it. So
for me, it's definitely Dave's Dynasty 4 team with Steve McCarahan, John Devonshire, and Fred Wall. And it ties into a previous topic too, because when I got into the game, I was at Burlington, and God bless them, the volunteers that wanted to teach us the game weren't exactly young, and two, that they didn't make it really fun for us. They did a great job of teaching us the game, but if I hadn't seen Dave and like Dave Ball and Freddie Wallbank and Richard Me and those guys out on their Wednesday or Thursday night league playing and carrying on and making epic shots and drinking afterwards, I never would have taken to the game the way I did. And I think 2016 at Edmonton was the closest I ever came to beating them. And it was in the gold medal game, and it came down to the last shot, and we missed by, I don't know, an inch to take the win there. So I don't even know if I have ever beaten Dave, but you guys had my number forever.
I won't admit to losing to you ever. For me, for me, the toughest I ever played against was a guy by the name of John Hagel, who in my books is a legend in lawn bowls from the Burlington Lawn Bowling Club, someone that Greg would have definitely played against and seen in the early days of his bowling anyway. He was complete natural talent, and it didn't matter because he actually didn't know if it was a tough shot or not. He would just throw his bowl and make the shot. And the people that are the toughest to play against are the ones that don't know that shot is impossible. Another guy I could bring up would be Dave Helping. In his prime, he made shots that nobody even saw on the green, and that made him complete magic. And if he would explain the shot to you, he'd say, "That's impossible. You can't do that, David." And he would, because he didn't think it was impossible to make. He thought, "Well, let's make this shot," and you try and make your shot. So people like who had not known, how tough the shot was, those are the real tough people. And John Hagel was definitely one of those, because he was pure natural talent.
I remember hearing stories of John Hagel, and the opposition bull would be halfway down the green, and the guy would step back from the mat, and John would step up onto the mat and let his bull go, while the other bull was still 3/4 of the way down the green, and it would come to rest, and then John's would come down and rest the bull out and be shot, whatever. And I think, Dave, it was you who used to tell this story fairly regularly, and I could be wrong, but I remember John stepped on the mat and let the bull go, and it was a real tight head, and he needed to make the shot to win the game. But as he let the bull go, he stood up, he grabbed the mat, he turned around, and he said, "Good game, laddie." But he said it like he knew he'd won the game before the bull was even close to halfway down the green. It's awesome.
I can fill in the blanks. 100% correct. And it was a game against Hugh Branston, and Huey throws his bowl, and it's going down the green, and Huey steps to the side, John Hagel steps on the mat, throws his bowl, and they're both going down the green at the same time, which is kind of illegal. And John Hagel turns, "Good game, laddie," and John Hagel draws inside of Huey's last bowl to win. It's just stupid to have that kind of stuff happen, but it did.
Awesome.
For me, I have a few. I'll piggyback on Greg's choice of the Anderson, Wallbank, McCarrahan dynasty, and you can sub in some other really amazing players like John Bazier, Jeff Harding, Adam McCarrahan was in there, and John Devonshire, of course. I think one of them is because I battled to try and beat them every year in the fours. Coming out of districts and into provincials, and it was probably my first most devastating loss when I got to the gold medal match and just got absolutely squashed by that team, because they were just so professional, so good, knew what they were doing, and I just couldn't keep up. So it was just like a complete it was really demoralizing to me at the time. It was crushing, but it taught me a lot about the game, and it was so tough to try to beat those guys coming out of Ontario. And my second one is kind of a weird one, but a lot of you guys will know him, Jürgen Fessler.
Oh, you're sure.
And it's probably for some of the reasons that you guys said, where it's the unpredictability, and sometimes it's the shots that you don't see that he knows he's going to make, and you don't think he's going to make it, and he makes it anyway. And I battled against him trying to get up Ontario as well, and kept losing and kept losing and kept losing. It took me a long time to finally beat him, but he's just one of those guys that was just a thorn in my side that never went away, and kept knocking me out of provincials and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, those are the guys that really, I guess, knocked me off my path a few times when I was trying to get somewhere.
I'll agree with Jürgen. Jürgen is always in the game no matter what. Even if he doesn't look like he's in the game, or if he's not playing well for a while, he comes back and he comes right back into the game. And yeah, unpredictability is certainly part of it, but he just doesn't ever give up. So yeah, I would put him on the list as one of the toughest people to play against.
Very true. I want to throw it out to you guys. Do you guys have any questions or topics that you wanted to throw out to the group to talk about? Mike, maybe?
Yeah, I kind of prepared.
Wow.
So the last couple weeks, a few weeks back, Bulls USA, Patrick Duffy specifically, posted a video or picture that was there. They did like a live stream of a singles match, and it was like the COVID Classic or something along those lines, and it was him against I don't even know who the guy he was against, but regardless, they posted a really dramatic like
Here's
fight
his last
photo picture together, and I thought it was a really cool idea because we've never really gone that route with lawn bowling before, obviously, where we don't do kind of the seedier aspect. We're very gentlemanly. I feel like we need to have a little more of that aspect where we're going against each other. So the topic I want to throw out to the group here is, what grudge match for lawn bowling do we need to see? You might not be able to really see my photo there. Pretty poorly photoshopped. That is Steve McCarahan and Dave Anderson. So we got a grudge
Nice
match
catch,
there that we
Tuesday.
could potentially have. But what Canadian lawn bowling grudge match do we need to see in the immediate future? Seeing as we don't have nationals, we can stream this stuff. We can, get some pay-per-view buys going here for the Canadian bowler.
Well, first I'll talk to Steve tomorrow about it. That's a good idea. We can probably get some decent viewership on pay-per-view for sure. Yeah, maybe like we have to pay them to watch the show. Who else would be good? Silence. More crickets. I like.
Like
I'd
the
love to get-
original idea I had, but I ran out of time, was I was going to say a handicap match. Like if we're going wrestling style here, I'm going to throw a handicap match out there, and it's going to be Fred Wellbank, David Anderson, and John Devonshire versus Steve McCarahan in a 3-on-1 handicap match. That's the type of stuff we're going to throw out here. But,
No problem.
and I don't know if that's going to fly because, lawn bowling has these rules, so...
No, I like that.
We'll drop
like
a
that.
cage right over the green as well, so they can't get out. They have to finish the match, right? Yeah.
Exactly. No time limit.
Oh man. Oh, you got me thinking. I don't have any specific ones right now, but that's a good idea.
Got nothing.
Got nothing. Oh.
I'd like to see Kevin Jones and James Cavell against the Stadnick brothers in their prime.
Ooh.
That's what I want to watch.
Oh, that'd be good too.
Very spicy.
Like a second one that I had in mind was like Luke. I played beside him and John Seitman playing each other in the U25s a few years back in Saskatoon, and that was quite the match. Like lots of noise from both of them the entire game. I would love to see that one again.
I lost. It was my 5th singles game of the day. To 21 points. 10 hours on the green.
Should we go back to that excuse section, or are we going to stick with the grudge match?
Oh.
Want to hear a funny story? You want to hear a funny story about that, though? If we're going to go the excuse route here, which I'm going to take all day long. So what happened was they put out a bracket. Bowls Canada had made a bracket of how we were going to play. And they had, like, Mike, you remember this. It was like 4 or 5 groups of 3 that were supposed to play against each other.
Yeah.
And I emailed them and I said, no, this is stupid. I'm not paying thousands of dollars to go and play 2 games and go home if I lose. And so, anyways, a couple people complained, myself included, and I think I was the first person to complain. And when they came up with the new bracket, I was the only person who had to play 5 games. So I think I got punished a little bit by Bowls Canada, so that's my excuse.
Yeah, I can remember that year too, because I played Brandon. I was playing Brandon when you were playing John, and Brandon at one point, like with the lights had gone down, because Brandon isn't exactly a quick player. He'll agree with me when I say that. He threw a drive at one point that went halfway up the green before it landed because it got stuck to his hand because there was dew. Like it was.
I
one of those
remember
days we were there so late.
Mike, quote me if I'm wrong, but I remember we started at 7:30 or 8 a.m. and we started our 5th game of the day at 10 o'clock at night.
I think it was a little earlier than that, but yeah, you're right with the start time for sure. We were there for at least 12 or 13 hours of the day. It was ridiculous.
I don't know if it's happened since, but I'd always like to see another rematch between Luke and Cam LaFrenz.
No, hasn't happened since. That was a good one though.
It was a good game, man. I had fun watching that.
We should have won that one. Bad green. Just kidding.
I'd like to go back to 2018 and play Norfolk Island one more time.
Going to disappointing losses, yeah.
It was a heartbreaker.
Yeah. So, coming on to the hour here, boys. I think we can call this show a success. I think we can say that we've at least kicked it off in good fashion with all the people that were here. Any last comments from any of you to all our adoring fans on the Canadian Bowler?
Don't forget to like and
Thanks for
subscribe.
Hit the subscribe.
I'd like to say something in closing.
Sure.
I think what just talking to Luke and Darryl specifically, I think your concept and your idea to do something like this is brilliant. You look at what's going on. I said this to Darryl earlier. I think it was yesterday or today. I can't remember when I talked to you about it. But having these podcasts or these video interviews that I see on Facebook all the time now with Bowls Australia in particular, and Bowls England is doing the same thing. I think they're brilliant because it makes the game a little more personal. You get to know something a little more personal about people or an event or something like that. And I think it can only be positive for the game. So what you, Luke, and Darryl have done with this and with your regular show, I just take my hat off for that. That's just great stuff.
Here.
Thanks, Dave.
I'll drink to that.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah,
I'm empty.
too.
I would just like to say quick, Darryl. I really like this group of guys we have on here, and I hope that we can do this again. I think it was a good time.
It
I'm
was.
free tomorrow.
Everything's coming up, Millhouse.
Well, the idea is to have a core group of people that we can call on to come on the show and keep things rolling. Have some ongoing conversations with people like the four of you that joined us today, while adding in a few new people to get some fresh ideas, some fresh blood, to even introduce them to this world of Skype and podcasts and streaming and all that kind of stuff, which is a little new to everybody, so it can be a little daunting at first. But I really want to say thank you to all four of you, and obviously my co-host Luke. As you see on all their names all over the place, you can follow them on Twitter or Instagram. All our social media is on the bottom. And like they said, don't forget to follow on Twitter, like on Facebook, and subscribe, like, and hit that bell on YouTube to really help us out. All the support really means a lot to us and the growth of this channel. And with that, I think we will sign off for the night. So thank you guys, and we will be chatting with you soon.
Thanks,
Good to
guys.
see you guys. Take
Thank
care.
you guys. Take care.
Bye.
Lawyer.